Alright, time to talk about my menagerie of birds, because I have so many of them. Here we're looking at the Blue Falcon, which I think might be the first vehicle I ever made. No, wait, hold on. That might be a lie, hold on. What is going on here? Did this thing actually work? It's totally neither here nor there. Also, note all the ridiculous number of reaction wheels. I'm not exactly sure if this was the first vehicle I've ever made, but it definitely feels like it is with the way this thing's constructed. I cannot in any way guarantee that this thing will launch. I know that it didn't. That's why there's a Mark II version of this vehicle. This is a very ambitious concept for a first jet vehicle. What the heck? Oh, let me just try to get that engine flipped over again. No way. Alright, whatever. I mean, let's just launch it. Why not? What's the thrust to weight ratio on this guy? It's a super heavy vehicle. It's above 1. Yeah, alright, let's just launch it. I have no faith that this thing will do anything other than flip forward or flip backwards and explode. This should be fine. Oh. Ah, see, there you go. There you go. Alright, hold on. Whoa, 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 whoa. Yikes. Yikes. Shit. Okay. God damn it. Fuck. Alright, jump. Okay. Jesus Christ. Alright. Yeah, that's exactly what I thought was gonna happen. So, let's go ahead and not. That's that. Let's go ahead and open up the one that does work. So, this one, considering that I've painted it, suggests that it works. To a degree, with a couple of asterisks. Here we can see some much needed changes. And with the design changes, you're also going to notice a bit of design language start to appear, especially with this bi-couple situation, where I have a cockpit, something here, then this coupler, and then this tail section. This is something that repeats in a couple of designs. Also changing the engines, making it a fixed, just plane, not a VTOL. And I'm reasonably certain this one does work. Now, a couple of things that I was doing wrong. Still, this plane is supposed to have all this RCS. It's a feature that makes it a stunt jet. The fact that you can use the RCS to turn further than what the plane is supposed to be able to turn at. Literally just push the plane with rocket jets to make it turn further. And this is also, I can do some sky drifts, I guess you can say. I want to see what kind of thrust weight we got. Alright, sweet. It's pretty good. So let's go ahead and take this one out. I know that a lot of these vehicles had a color scheme that got washed out when I added different mods that allowed me to change the color scheme. When mod gives me this option to change them between all these colors that I have in this palette. But then I add a different one later on. So that's why these are all going to be basically just like plain white. But anyways, without further ado, this vehicle should work, and it should be kind of fun to fly. Alrighty, so we can do this a couple of different ways. One really fun way is to launch from within here. However, every single vehicle basically looks the same from the inside. So while it's a fun view for me, I do think that I might get bored of seeing like literally the same exact cockpit or the same like 2 different cockpits over and over again. But we'll just do a little combination of inside flying and then seeing the flying from the outside. It's gonna be a good time. The Y button activates RCS on my Xbox controller, which I'm using to fly this thing. Flaps down. Ooh. And this thing produces a lot of lag because it's got like 147 parts. Future models, I so concentrate on cutting down the part number to avoid lag. So it is what it is for these first couple of flights. It does get better when I come up with much better designs. So let's do a locked view. Please, I hope I do not make you feel sick or disorientated. See how I'm not turning that great? See how that turn sucks? I'm gonna go ahead and activate the RCS now. And you can see now what the RCS is doing is basically brute forcing the vehicle into the particular angle that I want to be at. And I really need to point upwards because the vehicle is dropping precipitously down towards the ground, and I have actually lost control of the vehicle. However, if I use the RCS, I could potentially recover. Kinda. This thing is not getting lift. This thing is not getting lift. Alright, there we go. Cool. So, this vehicle, pretty rough, pretty hard to fly. Not gonna lie. I remember that it's fun, but it's tricky. Mostly because it's a terrible design. Not much more else to say about that, really. But, let's get some internal flight. I might actually be able to control the vehicle a lot better from this view, because it's a squirrely Dan. It's a little tricky bird, but I can always pop up this RCS to get back into motion. Keep myself from spinning out of control. I'm gonna do a nice sick turn right here. Alright, watch this, watch this, watch this. Ah. Oh, I'm out of RCS? Oh no, here we go, there we go. Alright, now let's not crash. There we go. There we go. Because we're losing altitude when we make these turns like that. I used to have, actually, I think I can pull up the other readout. Just get myself into a trajectory where I'm not gonna crash into anything. Where is it? I think it's like IVA readout. Where is it? Free IVA. There you go. In the free IVA that I have, I can see the amount of motor propellant right there. So I still have 2 kilograms of motor propellant. Alright, let's go ahead and make this turn. Hopefully we don't fall out of the sky. Thanks to all the reaction wheels, I can also turn more than the plane should theoretically be able to turn. Alrighty, let's get back on this little track. This is something that I also want you guys to be aware of, the quote-unquote track. It's going to be between these 2 buildings, the satellites right here, that building right there on the right side, passing these windmills right here, between these 2 things right there, whip it around, make a turn right here, over the runway. Oh, let's not crash. Whoa, 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 whoa. Then I'm going to go past the control tower over there, over to my slight left. We're making our way towards that control tower now. Between the control tower and that, I think, water tower, or smaller control tower. Passing this antenna, mast, and then between this here circular, I think, observatory dome, and the windmills to my right that I just passed right there. And now we're back where we started again. And that's the track. So, a lot of my vehicles are tuned to be able to do this track somewhat well, and that's kind of like the benchmark for how much maneuverability I can get out of these vehicles, is how well I can do this here track. I guess I could attempt to land, right? That should be fun. Alrighty. This thing is so huge. Oh my god. It's just dawning on me right now that this thing's a fat bird. I promise absolutely nothing. I promise to crash. I promise that I'll kill Jeb right now in front of you guys. That's what I promise. Yeah, it really does not like that. Yawing in this vehicle is just a no-no. Let's put a little less gas on it. Point ourselves upward. Or we're gonna crash right here. Or we're gonna crash right here, right now. I can land it right now. I can also do that. Okay. I'm gonna put the landing gear down. This landing's gonna be just awful. It's already just really bad too. This is not how you want to land a vehicle, but whatever. Let's use the RCS to help us. Look at that. Look at that, look at that. Isn't that beautiful? Yeah. Yeah, this is gonna work for surezies. Oh, for surezies. Oh, clean! Oh, that was beautiful. I didn't expect that to work at all. Look at Jeb. He's cheesed. Any day he gets to go home to his family, he's so cheesed. Let's just go ahead and crank that up real fast. Alright, that went exceptionally well. And I'm a little upset that it did. That went unreasonably well. This plane should have totally crashed into the ground. So let's see what else is here. There's a little bit of a story here, alright? This is a journey. This is a story about a journey. Each plane becomes less garbage. So as you can see, I'm still using stock parts. This is still really early. But this is an example of one of my earliest VTOL craft that actually worked and performed really well, actually. And with that said, this one isn't even the original version of what it is. It's pretty close to the original design, but I did change a few things. I have an older model that we can reference to see some of those changes. But this is also one of the most decorated vehicles I have. As you can see here, I have decals of actual blue dragons on the front. And then I got the blue dragon logo and name right here in the back. Let's get nice and close. So this is definitely something that I invested a lot of time and interest into. But also we can see that I still haven't quite mastered the VTOL concept, because I'm still using these reaction wheels to help me stabilize the vehicle. There's also, I think, way more in the nose cone. Let's look at that right now. Look at this. Oh, look at that. All these reaction wheels, all of these radioisotope generator units. This is a lot of time where I didn't quite have everything figured out as far as how to make a stable vehicle yet. So I was compensating in every which way I can with the reaction wheels. And this cockpit in and of itself also has full reaction wheel force active. But with all that said, it flies incredibly great, and it's a super good vehicle for what it's made for, which is to be an explorer vehicle. This is something you use when you want to go survey an area, look for like the moho, whatever it is, all the cool Easter egg things. This is a fantastic vehicle to go find those things, because it also has incredible range. That might not seem like quite a lot of range, but I was able to fly this thing from the desert airfield all the way down to Antarctica. And this is also a vehicle that I made during a time where I finally switched over to the new part coloring mod, which I forgot the name of which one I'm using, but so from here on out, I think most of my vehicles are going to be painted. So anyways, let's go ahead and reference the older model. Then I'm going to jump back into this one, fly it, and then I'll even show you the newer model that I just recently made, like a couple days ago. Alright, so as you can see, a lot of parts, completely uncolored. So one of the original design features was this. The landing struts that were connected to the actual engines on the front. Terrible, I don't like that. I don't even think I liked it when I did it the first time, but it was the only place where I thought these landing legs make sense. No landing legs, or no landing wheels. So if you, for any reason, have to do a conventional landing, you will have to belly flop. So that's not great. That's why the Mark II model does have legs, or wheels, I should say. But I'm pretty sure I got rid of the legs. Also, this one's running two tiny Typhoon engines, which I think it produced more power, but they were also more oxygen hungry. And there's a lot of situations where if I was trying to take off at a higher altitude, I wasn't able to supply enough oxygen into the engines to take off. I was just stuck on the ground. And then this is also one of the first vehicles that I armed. This has rocket pod, 250 cals, just something real simple and quick that I threw onto the vehicle, because it being a VTOL, obviously when I start adding new bits and pieces, the center of gravity is going to shift. So I tried to keep the armament light so that I didn't throw off the balance too much. And as you can see, I have the ammunition right in the center, So when this ammunition drains out, it doesn't shift the weight either way. That's the one thing about VTOLs. They are obviously sensitive to resources draining out and those resources moving your center of mass back and forth. Alrighty. Everything's looking proper and good. Alright, let's go ahead and launch this guy. So I can get rid of this. I do have a VTOL specific readout. It's not really gonna be super necessary, but it's a thing. I have one. It exists. I'm gonna jump out of the vehicle, get into Jeb's perspective, jump back in the vehicle. This gives me like a much greater field of view, and that's pretty epic. I like that. But turn on everything, all the bells and whistles, activate the brakes. We're just gonna get up off the ground, do a little thing, fly around. There we go. Yeah, buddy. Alrighty, so let's go ahead and just do a little whatever, do a little thing, fly around. Of course, there's also the alternate configuration where the engines flop down and we can fly like a regular conventional plane. I'll show you that here in a second. Try just do a little flying around. If I wanted to, I can configure the engines to start off at a slight, like, 15 to 20 degree angle, and that way I can get a little bit of forward momentum and upward momentum at the same time, and that will increase my top speed. That's something that you'll see in some of my later VTOL models, but this one was just kind of like getting things working beyond a proof of concept. And then of course this specific one that I'm in is a Mark II already. So technically the newer one is a Mark III, but you know, semantics. Now the engine flip is a little silly. Alright, let's go ahead and I'm going to demonstrate that right now. The engine flip is a little silly because these things are huge. Bang. Look at that. Huh. Could have sworn this one is supposed to use Saturn engines. Ah. So now we're in the regular flight mode. Conventional flight mode. It flies pretty great in this mode, and it is capable of hypersonic flight above like 4,000 kilometers. I did record and film some of these bits separately. I just wanted to put that out there. So this right here I record on a separate day. Alright, so here I am making my way towards the abandoned airfield on the island that's off the coast over here. And I'm also attempting to break the sound barrier, which I know this plane is capable of doing. As you can see, I'm just behind the threshold there. So I'm going to go ahead and give it some afterburner, and that should push me well into the supersonic speed. And you might be able to even hear a sonic boom when I turn the camera here. And I think that was it right there. Alright. So I'm coming out of the supersonic flight regime because I took off the afterburner. And I'm going to make my way towards this island over here. I do attempt a landing sequence, and it does not go well. But nonetheless, up until the last moment, it basically works just like this. Now I'm going to come in, and then when I get to just about where I would like to land, in this case I overshoot it. When I get to where I would like to land, I pull up, and that's going to push all the downward thrust in a forward direction, which will start to cancel out my forward speed. Here I'm just trying to level off the craft, because once I touch that menu, I can't control the plane. So here we go, and you can see I'm losing my vertical speed. It's going to start to go down here in a second. And as I'm doing that, since I did overshoot where I wanted to land, I'm going to go ahead and come around and make a second approach. I think for most people who've flown some kind of VTOL hybrid vehicle, like a nuclear option, I've seen this sort of J-hook maneuver you have to do if you don't slow down in time to get onto the runway you're trying to land on. So here I am now. I'm gonna move towards the runway, hopefully not pick up too much upward speed when I have to slow down, because as you can see I'm picking up speed in the forward direction. And here in a minute you're going to see that I'm going to be like really up in the air, and that's because I'm trying to cancel out that forward speed, which in a plane with wings, when you pull up you go up, so you can kind of see that there is a bit of a discrepancy in how these vehicles work. You know, pulling up on a plane makes you want to go up, but at the same time you pull up on this vehicle to slow down to then start your descent. But you know, that's neither here nor there. Point is, if you're in an area where there's active SAM missiles trying to hit you or anti-aircraft fire, you probably just want to do a conventional landing. Not that that is a situation that this plane would ever find itself in. Anywho, it's at this point that I get a little too eager to reunite with the ground, which in most cases is not a good idea. And here you can see that results in me clipping a wing. Now I decided I could do this even better. Not the landing, the clipping my wing. So here I am clipping the wing again. This time from a much higher distance. And Jebediah is, hey look, he's fine. Alright, so here is the Blue Dragon 2. Technically 3. One thing I did not point out, the Blue Dragon 1 is like, I forget how many meters long. I think it's like 2 more meters longer than this one. That one was like 12 meters, this one's 10. This one's a little bit smaller. And so a couple of features. So the older version had a docking port. I took it out in the second model, but then the only area you had to use as space was the cockpit. I did miss having the docking port because in IVA you can actually use that space. It was like a whole like room. So I've gone ahead and added this so that I can have a second room in here. It's pretty neat. I like it. Just kind of makes it feel like you have a place where you can retreat to like spend the night or whatever if you're out exploring for a lot longer. And then this uses what I'm going to refer to as the modern VTOL concept, which there's a lot of iterations that got me to this concept right here. But as you can see, the whole engine doesn't flip over now, because that's ridiculous. I'm also using smaller intakes, smaller engines. I'm using a mix of the Saturn, which has a gimbal, and the Typhoon, which has more power but doesn't have a gimbal. And all I'm really getting out of this is that I can have a smaller engine and still get the power that I want. But these are pretty air hungry. That's why this one has a U50 pre-cooler, and this one does not, because this supplies enough air for this. In fact, I think it supplies a bit more than it actually needs. The camera in this model is functional. I think there's a second camera too for landings. It's right here. And then most importantly, there's also this. There are no reaction wheels in here. There is an active force in the cockpit, and I think there's only one additional reaction wheel in the back. I'm gonna poke my head in here. So there's this one right here, the double R8 RWA, and those produce 5 kilonewtons. And with this being a scaled down version of the cockpit, it's either getting the original 10 kilonewtons that it comes with, or slightly less. But either way, I've reduced greatly the number of reaction wheels. I mean, I finally got this thing kind of tuned down where I don't need all that assistance. And as such, I don't have 140 something parts, I have 88. And a lot of those parts are actually just these flaps, which are part of the procedural wings mod that I added, which is also where this cone head comes from. But a lot of this other stuff is pretty much like from mods and non-procedural parts. But this is a procedural part, that is the wings are, and these body pieces right here are, which I wanted to preserve the old design with these procedural parts. And one thing that I added back to the design is the landing legs. So you do have the option to land on rough terrain with no wheels, and you have the option to land on smooth terrain with your wheels. You can land VTOL, you can land conventional. This does it all right here. This is the the culmination of various different design attempts. And also, you're gonna see with all my other later vehicles, I have a bunch of flaps that are all functional. They all have their own purpose, like these flaps right here, which are currently down. Let me undeploy it, deploy it again. These are also, I can maximize the amount of lift I get at low speeds, though I haven't yet tuned them for that. You actually do have to fly it around and figure out what angle in the back, in the front and in the back you need, because this one also is a flap. And then back here, instead of the all-moving stabilizer, I have these ones at an angle. I think the previous model had 2 up and then 2 out. I guess I can open up the model and look at it again. But now we're doing a high slanted V with partial. This one does everything, and then this one I think only does pitch and yaw. I can't exactly get, how do you say, like this being both a pitch and a yaw. I would like for it to have an authority limit of 30 degrees for the pitch, and a authority limit of like less than this, like maybe 10 for the yaw. I can't do that. So my go around is to just segment the rear stabilizer and give one of it one set of functions, give one of it a different set of functions. I don't know if it really works. It's just a workaround from KSP not having a feature that would allow me to tell it how much can come from the yaw and how much can come from the pitch. Hopefully that made sense, and if it didn't, I'm really sorry. And now these are double segmented engine mounts. So there's one here, and there's a reason why I did this. Partially to kind of make the design a little bit more compact, so not a lot of stuff is moving, you know, swinging around. But also because, once again, KSP has an issue where if I try to use the action, let me see. If I try to use this one, where is it set to build angle, it will work on one side. It will not work on the other side. And with this being a VTOL craft, if I do that, it will spin out of control. So I can't have that happen. Because of that limitation from the video game, I've decided my workaround is to do a double articulated engine mount. So this moves, and this moves. So when I want to get into one type of flight regime, I can just move one of the mounts and not the other, and that will pitch the angle to one angle. Like I think one of them is going to be 70 degrees. Or I can take this one off, and now we're at a 20 degree angle. And then this is obviously 90 down. And then once I reset all of them, it'll be 9 degrees, but going backwards. So that's the very, not really complicated, but that's how that all works. And that allows me to get technically 4 different flight modes or flight configurations. All back, all down, 20 degrees, and like I said earlier, I think like 70 degrees. The only ones I intend to use are all back, all down, or 20 degrees, because that's going to give me a lot of forward momentum and a little bit of downward momentum, so I don't fall out of the sky. Like the other one, you know, it was a little iffy. And also, one thing I haven't checked or mentioned is the what is this here? The lift to weight ratio. The starting weight that I like to, the starting ratio that I like to go with is 0.7. I don't want to start off with a full 1, which would be really efficient, but I'll sacrifice some efficiency for less surface area, or less, how you say, not cross-section. Maybe cross-section is the right word. But basically, the smaller my ratio is, that's also in relation to the smaller area that I'm presenting at this angle specifically. The less I have it, the less resistance I have when the plane is pitched, like it is, like I'm trying to simulate right here. if I have bigger wings, that's going to obviously create more resistance. Smaller wings, less resistance. That's the operating theory for this vehicle and why I'm trying to have my lift-to-weight ratio really small. It also doesn't technically need to be high because it's a VTOL. It's not really going to fly like a plane all the time. And when it does, the thrust-to-weight ratio is already going to be above 1 because, once again, it's a VTOL. It gets its lift from pushing air down at a greater amount than its own weight. Yeah, hopefully that will make sense. Anyways, that was a whole lot of nonsense. I thought I was just going to fly the thing, and I just talked for I don't know how long. Let's fly the thing. Let's go ahead and yeah, do this. Here's the camera, which is pointed down, which we're not going to really get anything out of that right now. Whoops. Is it this one? Yeah, there we go. And then click that. I don't really have to go that high in the thrust if I'm just trying to get off the ground. Oops, wrong button. Whoop. I meant to disengage the brakes. Anyways, now we're pitching backwards. Alright, so here we are. Getting off the ground. I do have a lot more resistance from the front. Because the reaction wheels are minimized, I do have to monitor the nose, keep it from tipping forward or tipping upwards too much. In the other flight modes, though, it's actually far less of a problem. So I'm going to go ahead and get into the conventional mode first. Doing pretty good so far. We're not dropping out of the sky. We're able to produce quite a bit of lift, although once I get leveled out, it does look like my vertical speed does get a little iffy there. No, we're back up again. It does have, I think, the ability to pull some pretty tough, some pretty high G turns. No, never mind, I'm wrong. It does have a pretty nice amount of maneuverability. The amount of G's that you can get on a turn is minimized a lot because it's an explorer craft. It's not supposed to do anything super crazy or pull any crazy stunts. With that said, also without it needing to pull crazy stunts, I am accepting a little bit more instability and wobbliness out of the vehicle because it doesn't need to be super precise. And this whole project was trying to get further and further away from using those reaction wheels. Anyways, let's go ahead and cut power. Not increase power, cut power. So I can slow down a little bit. And I'm going to get into configuration 3, where my engines are going to be pointed at a slight angle. Give myself just a little bit of juice. Now this is obviously supposed to be a nice little mix of both worlds. A little bit of down, a lot more forward. Pretty much makes it so you can kind of cruise. You're not going to be going super fast. And you're also not going to be going really slow. Because in VTOL mode, the vehicle is actually pretty slow. No lie. I think we do get a little bit of maneuverability difficulties with turns in this configuration. Because she's acting a little squirrely right now. It's not a bad configuration if you want to go for a little cruise. Let's see what kind of speed we get. Probably get like a 120 meters per second here in a bit. Yeah, a little bit higher than that actually. That's not even at full clip. Full clip, we might even go up to 160 meters per second. Just bring her back around so we can fly over the city. Nice. Nice and smooth. Actually, let's go to Chase. Chase is nice. That way it's not super fixed and hard on the vehicle. Yeah, we're going to reach a pretty decent clip. We're going above 168 now. 167. Go ahead and bring her back around. Maybe not give that... Not that much of a roll. There we go. Keep it like right there. It's a little trickier to fly from the outside, but it's alright. I'm gonna cut power again. VTOL mode likes to operate at about like 40 meters per second. You don't have to cut power before you do that. I just prefer to do it because I think it's probably a lot less stress on the airframe. So, point back forward. Get into VTOL mode. And this is going to produce a little bit more drag. I'm just going to wait until it slow down a little bit more. There's good. I should still continue to, I'm going to speed up here, but at a certain point I'm going to reach my like average cruising speed, which is like about 45 meters per second, I think, in this vehicle. It might be faster because this one is smaller, has less drag maybe. Yeah, it's pretty nice. So you can do a lot of surveying with this. It's not meant for surveying cities, in that I'm not going to try and weave in between all these buildings. I have other vehicles for that. But is for surveying features. So let's go ahead and see how we do that. So we open up the FLIR targeting camera. We're obviously not using it for any targeting today, but semantics. And then I'm gonna go ahead and look for something to lock onto. Let's go ahead and lock onto the where are we? Gimbal limit. I'm gonna try and angle it towards the, there you go, right there, that facility. I think I can get it there. Just gonna limit myself right there. So I'm gonna lock, and then using the number pad I can zoom in. I can look around here, get a little closer. See that? So I can do quite a bit of surveying right now. And this is all while I have my hands completely off the controller. I'm just letting the plane kind of cruise. Very stable vehicle because I'm literally not paying attention at all to what the controls are doing. I'm just staring at whatever's out here. And we can also use this camera down here. Although this is definitely more for landing. And let me go ahead and just perform one of those for you guys right now. I think it's button 3. Yeah, button 3 is for the landing legs. And with any luck, I'll be able to perform this full first try. It's not really like super hard, but you definitely want to pay attention to your timing and looking at your vertical speed and surface speeds. These two numbers right here are really what's going to help guide your landing process. You obviously don't want any forward momentum if we're trying to land straight down, and you obviously don't want any upward momentum if you're trying to land, because that means you're not landing. It means you're going up. So managing that forward momentum is really just a function of tipping forward, back, and sometimes side to side depending on where the energy is coming from. And you can use that nav ball for what it's for, helping you guide your vehicle's direction. Alright, so like I said earlier, I did crash the first attempt, and this is a second recording. I guess if you want to see that, here's that real quick. A good landing speed is not the one that I'm at right now. Oh! Yikes! Well, you hate to see it, folks. Alright, so regardless, here I am, pulling the descent rate. I mean, actually, I have way too much forward speed, because I guess I'm tipping my nose a little forward. Either way, the vertical speed is a little high right here. You definitely want to go a little bit closer to 5 meters per second or 4. Here I'm in a little bit in the higher range. Not right at this second, but when I land, you'll see that it's actually kind of rough because I let the descent rate go a little too high. Here we go. Here we go. Here we go. We're about to see it right now. And boom. So that's not what you want. But thankfully, I was able to control the situation. I didn't climb too much on the rebound. And yeah, here we go. Hopefully I didn't damage my nozzles on my engines in the front there. And yeah, look at that beautiful bird. Unfortunately, thanks to time constraints, I'm going to be cutting things off here. However, in the next segment, I'm going to be getting into the beginnings of my war vehicles, and that's like I think another 2 or 3 segments all on their own. So go ahead and hit like, hit subscribe if you want to see more KSP content specifically about aviation and aircraft, because I do a little bit of that on this channel. And yeah, have a wonderful day.